Is it a real contraction or did you just eat something weird? How do you know when you're actually in labor? This is a question that so many parents have, and they can feel so confused at the end of pregnancy when they start to feel contractions come and go and they just aren't sure what is real and what isn't. Today in this video, you are going to learn exactly what you need to know to feel confident and prepared for this journey into labor, understanding what the different stages look like and how to respond the right way to set yourself up for the smoothest labor possible. So you may be experiencing some of those practice contractions or Braxton Hicks, which basically is a contraction that your body will spontaneously give you to practice like running around the block before you run the marathon. It's just about toning and strengthening your uterus. These contractions come and go. They're 20 to 30 seconds long and they're random, so they don't come at any pattern. Sometimes parents think that these practice contractions are like their baby pressing up against the front of the uterine wall, and that could happen sometimes, but probably if you're feeling a hardness around your whole belly, that's probably your whole uterus contracting in a practice contraction. The next stage is prodromal labor, and this is where it gets confusing. Prodromal labor can look a lot like early labor. Contractions can come at a pattern, they can be longer, and then we start to think like, maybe this is an actual labor contraction. Labor contractions last about 60 seconds, and sometimes they can go beyond that in active labor. Typically in prodromal labor or in early labor, contractions are 50-55 seconds. They're getting close to that minute mark. But pattern and contraction length is very different for everyone. With prodromal labor, contractions will come at some kind of regular interval. Maybe they're like 7 minutes apart, maybe they're 15 minutes apart. Somewhere around there, you're noticing that you're continuously getting contractions and they just keep coming. The difference between early labor and prodromal labor is that when you're in early labor, first you're getting contractions at that regular pattern. It's typically every 10 to 30 minutes or so, and they're lasting close to a minute, sometimes even beyond a minute. Prodromal labor fizzles out and early labor continues into active labor. Here are a few ways that you can identify the difference. Number one is that prodromal labor will go away when you are resting. So if you were to be up and on your feet making dinner at the end of the day and you're noticing you're getting all these contractions, if you lie down on your side on the couch for a little bit and you notice that the contractions start to kind of fizzle out and they're not as intense anymore, it's very possible that you're in prodromal labor. With early labor, even if you take a warm shower, even if you're resting and lying down, you'll continue to get the contractions, and the contractions will become longer, stronger, and closer together over time. Sometimes a hot bath can calm your uterus and make your early labor contractions stall out a little bit, but otherwise early labor contractions won't wear off when you're resting. Some other things you can look out for are, number one, are you clearing your bowels? Typically before we go into labor, our body will clear our bowels and we'll have a lot of loose stool, or we'll be on the toilet all day on and off, and that is very, very common. As a birth worker, if my mom were to text me and say like, hey, I've been having contractions at this regular pattern, I'd be like, okay, could be something, could be nothing. But if they were to say, and I've been on the toilet all morning, I'd be like, that sounds like something's happening. Number two would be to look out for your mucus plug. Did your mucus plug leave your body? If you lost your mucus plug, it means that your cervix is opening and dilating. Your mucus plug is a gathering of mucus that lives inside of your cervix, and as you go into labor and as your cervix opens and dilates, your mucus plug will fall out. It could grow back, which means that you could continue to stay pregnant and it could grow back, or you could go into labor that day or in the next couple days. It's very common to lose your mucus plug and go into labor in the next day or so. You might wipe and notice a little bit of bloody snot. It could be a little yellowy. That's your mucus plug. Number three would be to look out for a head change. How are you feeling? When you go into early labor, your body releases all these hormones to make labor happen, like oxytocin. And oxytocin is that hormone of love. So often we'll feel like suddenly our heart feels really open, we feel really relaxed, more inward. And sometimes it can hit you kind of hard and you could feel like, whoa, I'm like starting to feel very different. Other times it's kind of like a frog in boiling water and you kind of start to go into that altered state, but you aren't even quite realizing that it's happening. Either way, if you think that you're in early labor, I would not only be looking at the pattern specifically, I would also look at how are you feeling? Because if you're feeling way more inward and more relaxed and more open and more sensitive, maybe you don't really want to go out into the world, that might be a sign that you're going into labor. And number 4 would be, how do the contractions feel? Typically, early labor contractions are not painful. They're just that tense, like tightening of the muscle around your belly. They're just that tightening of that muscle of your uterus, covering your whole belly so your belly can just kind of get tighter and harder. You can visually see it. But sometimes in early labor, moms will feel that the contractions feel a little bit different than prodromal labor or Braxton Hicks. They'll feel like my contractions are this deep, achy cramp, like a period cramp. Maybe they feel a little bit in their back. Moms will often say, this feels different. Now, when do you call your midwife or go into the hospital or birth center? Everyone says follow the 511 rule, and I think that is kind of, yes, what you should do and kind of not. The 511 rule can fail a lot of parents because not everyone follows the typical pattern. So some parents will end up going in way too soon and other parents will end up going in way too late. I know a mom who had contractions that were 5 minutes apart and they lasted a full minute, and they were at a very high intensity level very quickly. And she was definitely ready to go in, but instead she chose to wait and labor at home for an hour before going in because that's what she was told to do. And she ended up having her baby in the car. Other times, parents can go to the hospital way too soon in that earlier transition into active labor, and then they get sent home or their labor kind of stalls out a little bit because they were still in that really vulnerable, kind of sensitive beginning stages of labor where your hormones are very sensitive. You are an animal in the wild, right? Assessing if it's safe to give birth. And if you experience stress, you go into a new place, that can release stress hormones and kind of slow your labor down. It is also an evidence-based way to reduce your risk for a C-section by laboring at home for a little bit first before going in. So we want to look at how long your contractions are. Are they lasting about 60 seconds or more? Are they about 5 minutes apart? And has that been going on for enough time for it to be considered a pattern? But some parents benefit from laboring at home for many hours before going in, and other parents benefit from going in sooner. So what you should look out for is the intensity level. An early labor contraction is like, ooh, yeah, I'm getting one right now. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of talk during it, but you really don't want to. And in between the contractions, you're probably going to feel like, okay, all right, like back to whatever I'm doing. In active labor, you probably won't be feeling that way. As you transition from early labor into active labor, 3 things will happen. Your contractions will get longer, they will get stronger, and they will get closer together. So as that pattern is happening, the intensity is also increasing. So an active labor contraction requires often that the mom is using some kind of coping tool to help them get through the contraction. It kind of looks like this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Right? We have to moan, we have to sway, we have to get in a certain position. We need to use some kind of tool to help us get through the contraction. Mom cannot talk during a contraction and also probably isn't that chatty in between contractions. Sometimes the mom will call me and she'll say, I think that I'm going into labor, and I'll listen to a contraction and the mom is going, oh, or something like that during the contraction. And I think, okay, that sounds like an active labor contraction. And they're 5 minutes apart, but I timed them and they're only lasting about 45 seconds. So that to me says that this mom is on the earlier stage of active labor, transitioning into active labor, but not quite at that pattern yet. So we want the full pattern of contractions lasting a full 60 seconds, of them being about 5 minutes apart. And that one has a lot of variation. My contractions were 3 minutes apart from the very beginning of active labor through all my births. I also know moms whose contractions were 6 or 7 minutes apart. So anywhere between 3 to 7 minutes is very common, but 5 is definitely the average. And we have the intensity level for active labor. I would say if you're one of my coaching clients, because my coaching clients can contact me when they're in labor, and if you were to call and say, I think I'm in labor, Victoria, what do you think? I would say maybe not if you're the one who's calling me. If your partner is the one who's calling me or your support person, then yes, probably you are. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button and subscribe so that you can be informed when I post my next videos. And in the description below, there's a link to my free birth course. You've got this.